of a particular product, then that means that the demand of that product will decrease. And there are various ways in which the government can discourage consumption of a particular product. The government can discourage the consumption of a particular product by increasing its tax. If the tax increases, then that means the price of that product will increase and less people will buy the product. So the government influences the demand of a product highly. It either encourages the demand of a product or discourages the demand of a product. Another factor that affects the demand of a product is change in taste, preferences and fashion. Change in taste, preferences and fashion. So maybe many people have been desiring, have been having the taste of wearing, maybe let's use the female clothes. Maybe many people have been desiring and they have been having the taste of wearing carrots. There are those trousers that I hear they call them carrots. If the fashion changes, now it's fashion for another kind of a cloth, then the demand of the carrot will decrease. So you may change your taste. You may change your taste. Maybe you are interested in techno phones, then you change your taste. You change your taste into Samsung phones, then the demand of the Samsung phone will end up decreasing, while the demand of techno phones will end up decreasing, while the demand of the Samsung phones will end up increasing. So that is change in taste, preferences and fashion. Fashion changes, taste changes, and so on and so forth. The other factor that influences the demand of a product is seasonal changes. Seasonal changes. Seasonal changes. Seasonal changes. So if it is a season of consuming a particular product, then the demand of that product will increase as compared when it is out of season. For instance, this particular time, it's rainy season. The demand for umbrellas and jackets will increase as compared to their demands when it is a sunny season. So the seasonal changes also influences the demand of a product. So we have seen that demand is the quantity of goods and services that the buyers are willing and able to buy at a particular price in a given period of time. We have seen that some factors that influences or affect the demand of a product include price of the product, level of consumers' income, price of other related product, where we've said other related product, they can be either related as substitutes that can be used instead of the others, or complementary that are used together. Government policy can either encourage or discourage consumption of a product. If it encourages consumption of the product, the demand of that product increases. If it discourages consumption of the product, then the demand of that product decreases. Change in taste, preferences and fashion. I've used an example. If girls changes from wearing carrots to miniskirt, then the demand for carrots will decrease and the demand for miniskirt will increase. So change in taste, change in fashion, change in preference. You really loved to take Fanta orange, but now you change your preference. Now you prefer Coca-Cola or the Sprite. Then the demand of the Fanta will decrease. That is what we call change in taste, preferences and fashion. We've also talked of seasonal changes. If it's a sunny season, then the demand for gumboots will decrease. If it is rainy season, the demand for gumboots will increase. And also we talked of level of consumers' income. If the consumers who consume that product that you are selling, their level of income increases, then more of them will buy the product and its demand will increase. While if their consumers, their income decreases, then the demand will also decrease. Those are the factors that affect the demand of the product. The next thing we look at is the law of demand. The law of demand. The law of demand. The law of demand, I said it was the first point that we stated here. Price of the product. Price of the product gives us the law of demand. And the law of demand states that when the price of the product increases, when the price of the product increases, the demand for the product decreases. The demand for the product decreases. Well, if the price of the product decreases, then the demand of the product increases. That is the law of demand. That demand increases with the decrease in the price of the product, and demand decreases with the increase in the price of the product. That is the law of demand. So the next subtopic that we look at is demand schedule and demand curve. Demand schedule and demand curve. So demand schedule, it is a table. A demand schedule is a table. Demand schedule. A demand schedule is a table showing the prices of the product and the quantity demanded at the particular prices. So the demand schedule is a table showing the quantity of the product demanded and the price at the particular the price of the quantity and the price and the quantity of the product at the particular price. Demand schedule, it is a table showing the prices of the product and the quantity of the product demanded at the particular price. We have an example of a demand schedule in our board here. We have an example of a demand schedule. When the price of the bread is 10 shillings, 70 people are willing and able to buy the bread. If the price of the bread increases to 20, 50 people are willing and able to buy the bread. If the price of the bread increases to 35 shillings, only 30 people who are willing and able to buy the bread. If the price of the bread increases to 40 shillings, only 15 people are willing and able to buy the bread. If the price of the product, that is the price of the bread, increases to 55 shillings, then only 10 people who will be willing and able to buy the bread at the prevailing price. So the demand schedule, as is seen here, it is a table showing the prices of the product and the quantity of the product demanded at those particular prices. As we can see in our demand schedule here, is very easy to observe and see that when the price is 10, the demand of bread is 70. When the price decreases to 55, the demand of the bread is just 10. And this shows clearly the law of demand, that as the price increases, the demand of the bread decreases, sorry. As the price decreases, the demand of the bread increases. That is a demand schedule. Do you know what? A demand schedule helps us to come up with a demand curve. And therefore, the next subtopic is a demand curve. A demand curve. So a demand curve we have a demand curve. A curve is not drawn using a ruler. That is the curve. You use your hand to draw the curve. A demand curve is a curve or a graph of the price of the product against the quantity demanded. It is a table. Sorry, it's not a table. It is derived from the table, which is the demand schedule. The demand curve, it is a graph of the price of the product against the quantity demanded. My dear students, when you're told price against quantity, not only in business studies, but also in mathematics and other subjects that a graph is required to be drawn, when you're told price against quantity, the price will come at the y-axis and the quantity demanded will come at the x-axis. A demand curve looks like this. As you can see from the demand curve, if this is a sketch of a demand curve where we have the price from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and the quantity demanded from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. My dear student, what can you observe? This is what I can observe. When the price of the product from the demand curve, when the price of the product is 70, the quantity demanded is 25 here. When the price of the product decreases to 40, I want you to check that. When the price of the product decreases to 40, then the quantity demanded increases to 40. When again the price of the product decreases further to 20, you can see the quantity demanded is 70. And this is what we call a demand curve. A demand curve, my dear student, it clearly shows what happens in the law of demand. That the price, when the price increases, then the demand will decrease. When the price decreases, then the demand will increase. And that is what we call a demand curve. So, on the demand curve, we have what we call shift. We look at shift and movement. Shift in demand curve and movement along the demand curve. Shift in demand curve and movement along a demand curve. Let's start with shifts in demand curve. Let's start with shift in demand curve. Shift in demand curve. Shift in demand curve. A shift in demand curve can either be a shift to the right or a shift to the left. I want to just draw the two of them here. A shift in demand curve can either be a shift to the right or a shift to the left. This is a demand curve. This is a demand curve showing the price and the quantity. This is another demand curve showing the price and the quantity of the product that is demanded. The original demand curve flows like that. We call it D naught. D naught. We label it as D naught. This demand curve can shift to the right. It can shift to the right, that is to day one. If the demand curves shift to the right like that, this is what we call shift to the right, or a positive shift. This is called a positive shift in demand curve. A positive shift, which is a shift to the right, means that the price of the product remains constant or the same. It does not change, but the demand of the product increases. So I want us to see this illustration. At price 50 shillings, at price 50 shillings, and I want us to look at price 50 shillings, D naught, which is the original curve, the quantity demanded is 30. At price 50 shillings, if there is a shift to the right, at the same price, which is 50 shillings, the same price which is 50 shillings, the quantity demanded is 70. I want us to see the shift in demand curve to the right leads to an increase in demand of the product that is caused by all the factors that increases the demand of a product except price of the product. Because as we have seen, the price is 50 shillings and the quantity demanded is 30 at the original demand curve. If it is shift to the right, the quantity increases to 70 at the same price, which is 50 shillings. So my dear student, a question will come in the exam and you'll be brought a curve like this and you'll be told, explain or state 4 factors that led into that shift in demand curve, or factors that leads to shift in demand curve to the right. These factors are all the factors that influences the demand of the product except price. So you'll talk of level of consumers' income. And now you must be very keen. You don't just say level of consumers' income. Remember, it is a positive shift. So there is an increase in demand of the product. So you'll say high level of consumers' income, favorable government policy, favorable seasonal changes, favorable change in taste, preferences, and fashion. So you will talk of all the factors that influences the demand of a product except price, but you'll talk of those factors in a positive way. That is shift in demand curve to the right. A demand curve can shift to the left. This is our D naught, D naught. This is our day one. The demand curve shifts to the left. Let us see what will happen. At the price 50 shillings, D naught, we first consider D naught. D naught is the original curve. At price 50 shillings, the demand of the product was 40. There were 40 people who consumed the product. If the price shifts, if the demand curve shifts from D naught to D1 at the same price 50 shillings, the demand of the product decreases to 20. So what does this shift show you? That a shift in demand curve to the left means a decrease in demand of the product caused by all the factors that decreases the demand of the product except price. So if a question is asked, you'll say unfavorable government policy will cause this shift. You'll talk of unfavorable seasonal changes, unfavorable change in taste and preferences. You'll talk of low consumers' income or low level of consumers' income. So that is a shift in demand curve. shift right, shift to the left. Shift to the right caused by all the factors that influences the demand of the product except price, which is an increase, and shift to the left, which is caused by all the factors that affect negatively or that leads to this decrease in demand of the product except price. That is shift in demand curve. Still on demand curve, we go to movement along the demand curve. Movement along the demand curve. That was shift in demand curve. Then we go to movement along a demand curve. Movement along a demand curve. Movement along a demand curve. We'll still have our demand curve, which is price of the product and the quantity demanded. Price of the product and the quantity demanded. The demand curve slopes like that. So movement will have the original price here. We call it point X. So the demand curve can either move along upwards to the left from point X to point Y, or downwards to the right from point X to point Z. Movement along a demand curve, it moves like this. This is the original price, P naught. P naught is the original price. The demand curve can move along upwards to the right to point Y from point X, or downward to the right from point X to point Z. If the curve moves upward to the right, it will lead to an increase in the price of the product, which will end up leading to a decrease in the quantity demanded. If the curve moves along that is, if the curve moves from a point X to point Y, that is downward to the right, it will lead to a decrease in the price of the product, which leads to an increase in the quantity demanded. We call it Q2. So now I want us to see that movement after I have made it that way. A demand curve can either move from point X to point Y, which makes the price to increase from P0 to P1, leading to a decrease in the quantity demanded from Q0 to Q1. The price of the product, the demand curve can also move downward to the right, which leads to a decrease in the price of the product from P0 to P2, leading to an increase in the quantity demanded from Q0 to Q2. What does this show? The factors that leads to a movement along the demand curve are all the factors that influences the demand of the product. So here you don't say except price. All the factors, shift, that is what we said, shift either to the right or to the left. That is what we're saying, that it will be affected by all factors except price. But movement along the demand curve, that one we said, it is affected by all it is caused by all the factors that influences the demand of the product except price. Now, we go to what we call supply. That is all for demand. We'll go to supply, then we'll now come and see the supply curve, and also demand and supply curve, where we'll be talking about the equilibrium point, equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity. Yes. Okay, so we move on to what we call the supply of a product. We have talked about the demand of a product. We have said that if the buyers are willing and able to bring the product to the market, then the if the buyers are willing and able to buy the product, then the suppliers or the sellers must also be willing and able to bring the product to the market so that the buyers can buy. So that is what we call supply. Therefore, supply is the quantity of goods and services, is the quantity of goods and services or the product that suppliers or sellers are willing and able to bring to the market or to take to the market at a given price, at a particular price in a given period of time. At a particular price in a given period of time. So that is what we call the supply of the product, the quantity of the product that the sellers are willing and able to bring or to take to the market at a particular price in a given period of time. Now, we also have the law of supply. The same way we had the law of demand, we also have the law of supply. We have said, now let me ask you a question. As a seller, when would you bring more product to the market? Is it when the prices are high or when the prices are low? I, as the seller, will bring the product to the market when the prices are high because I'll make more profit. I'll make more profit from it. So the supply of the product is the quantity of the product that the sellers are willing to bring to the market at a particular price in a given period of time. Factors influencing the supply of the product. Factors that affect the supply of the product. Factors influencing the supply of the product. One, and is the one that gives us the law of supply, is the price of the product. Price of the product. Two, cost of production. Cost of production. Three, availability of factors of production. Availability of factors of production. 4, government policy. Government policy. 5, natural factors. Natural factors, and so on and so forth. My dear student, in Business Studies Paper 1, you'll be asked 4 points. In Business Studies Paper 2, you'll be asked 5 points. It's hard for you to be asked more than 5 points in any business exam. And if it's more than 5 points, then it's in Paper 2, and there are 6, not more than 6 points. So the factors influencing the supply of the product, one is the price of the product. When the price of the product increases, the supply of the product also increases. While when the price of the product decreases, the supply of the product also decreases. Cost of production. Cost of production. Cost of production refers to the expenses that are taken by the supplier to produce the product. Cost of production will include electricity bill, water bill, salaries and wages to the labor, and so on and so forth. So if the cost of production is high, then the supply will decrease. Why? Because the suppliers may not be having enough money to produce the product because of the high production cost. If the cost of production decreases, then the supply of the product increases because the suppliers will have, the cost of production will be affordable for them to produce the product. Availability of factors of production. In Form 1, you learned about factors of production, where we have land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Those factors of production are very important. By the way, back to Form 1. If you are asked the characteristic of any of those factors of production, one and the main characteristic is that it is a basic factor of production. Back to Form 1, satisfaction of human wants. Something that is basic, a basic want, is a want that you cannot do without. Therefore, factors of production, being basic factor of production, that means that production cannot take place without these factors of production. Production cannot take place without land, without labor, without capital, and without the entrepreneurship. So factors of production, if they are readily available and in good quality, then that means that the suppliers will produce more and will bring more to the market. If the factors of production are not available or they are of poor quality, then that means that the supply of the product will decrease. Government policy. Government policy. Government policy is one of the factors that is very important in all business studies topics. So government policy, if the government policy is favorable, which means that if the government encourages the supply or production of a particular product, then the supply of the product increases. But if the government discourages the supply or production of a particular product, then the supply decreases. Natural factors include the factors like floods, drought, and famine. When there is drought, when there is no rain, producers of maize may not bring more maize to the market. Why? This is a natural factor, something that is provided by the nature. There is no rain. So where will we get the maize from? Yet we depended on rain. Then that means that if the natural factors occurs, natural calamities such as floods occurs and destroy all the products, then that means that the supply of the product might decrease. The price of the product brings us to what we call the law of supply. The law of supply. The law of supply states that if the supply of the product increases with the increase in price of the product, supply of a product increases, the supply of the product increases with increase. The supply of the product increases with increase in price. With increase in price of the product. The supply of the product increases with increase in the price of the product, and also the supply of the product decreases with decrease in the price of the product. That means that if the price of the product increases, the supply will increase, and if the price of the product decreases, the supply of the product will also decrease. Just the same way we had the demand curve and the demand schedule, we also have the supply schedule and supply curve. What is a supply schedule? The supply schedule, it is a table showing the quantity. It is a table showing the price of the product and the quantity supplied at the particular price. When the price is 50, the supply is 70. When the price is 40, the supply is 50. When the price is 30, the supply is 20. And if the price is 20, the supply is 10. What is happening on our demand schedule? The price is decreasing from 50 to 20, leading to a decrease in supply from 70 to 10. And this demand schedule helps us to come up with, this supply schedule helps us to come up with the supply curve. The supply curve. And the supply curve, it slopes like this. The supply curve slopes like that. It is a table, not a table, it is a graph of the price of the product against the quantities supplied. At price 50 shillings, the quantity supplied is 80. If the price decreases to 30 shillings, as you see, the quantity decreases to 50. If the price increases to 70 shillings, the quantity increases to 90. So that's how the supply curve, slopes like. That's how the supply curve slopes like. It slopes like that, showing how the price increases with the increase in supply. The supply increases with the increase in the price of the product, and the supply decreases with the decrease in the price of the product. Still, just the same way we had the demand curve, shift in demand curve, and movement along a demand curve, we have shift in supply curve and movement along the supply curve. Let us see how the supply curve shifts. Let us see how the supply curve shifts. If this is our S naught, price quantity. Now, the supply curve can either shift to the right from S0 to S1, or the supply curve can shift from S0 to S2, which is shift to the left. So a supply curve can either shift to the right or shift to the left. What is happening at price 70? At price 70, the quantity supplied maybe is 50. At the same price, if the supply curve shifts to the right, at the same price, the quantity supplied increases to 60. So what has happened in shift in supply curve to the right? Shift in supply curve to the right has meant the demand to increase from 50 to 60, yet the price is constant. It has not changed. So this means that the causes of a shift in supply curve to the right are all the factors that influences the supply of the product, except price. Favorable government policy, low cost of production, low cost of production, favorable government policy, when there is lack of natural calamities or good natural factors, and so on and so forth, availability of good quality factors of production. That is a shift to the right. The supply curve can also shift to the left. the supply curve can also shift to the left, which means the supply curve is shifting from S0 to S2. From S0 to S2. At the same price, let's say 75, at price 75, the quantity, we consider S0 first. The quantity supplied is 80. If the curve shifts to the left from S0 to S2, that means that at the same price, 50 shillings, the quantity decreases to 40. What does that show? That a shift in supply curve to the left, it means decrease in the supply of the product that is caused by all the factors that influences the supply of the product negatively, except price. So that is a shift in supply curve to the right and a shift in supply curve to the left. These factors that causes a shift to the left include unfavorable government policy, high cost of production, unavailability of factors of production, and when there is natural calamities, and many more factors. The same way we had a movement along the demand curve, we also have movement. We also have movement along the supply curve. We also have movement along the supply curve. 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 We have our supply curve there. The supply curve, if we have point X, it can either move upward to the right to point Y or downward to the left to point Z. So at point X, there was price P0. If the supply curve moves upward to the right, it will lead to an increase in price of the product from P0 to P1. And that increase in price of the product will lead to an increase in the quantity supplied from Q0 to Q1. If the supply curve moves downward to the left, it will lead in a movement from P0 to P2. That is a decrease in the price of the product, which leads to a decrease in the quantity demanded from Q0 to Q2. From Q0 to Q2. So that is movement along the supply curve. That is movement along the supply curve. It can either move upwards to the right or downwards to the left. So that is movement along the supply curve. We have the equilibrium point. That is what we are going to look at. Equilibrium point and equilibrium price. That is movement along the supply curve. In our next lesson, we'll deal with the equilibrium point and the rest of the subtopics that are remaining in the topic of demand and supply. I believe that, my dear students, we've learned and you have understood what we've learned, and I thank God for this far. That brings to an end our lesson for today, which was demand and supply. My name is Teacher Kelvin Fudi Wanyabura, and I want to wish all the candidates who are sitting for their KCSE 2022 exam, wish you all the best, and most specifically I wish my students in Bethlehem Senior School all the best as you sit for your KCSE 2022. May God bless you. My name is Teacher Kelvin Fudi Wanyabura from Bethlehem Senior School, and God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Never forget to pray before you do anything. God bless you.